for rideshare drivers in the nation's largest market. Now, it's finally happened, at least for one particular market of drivers. What up, folks? It is your boy Tim with another ride-sharing video. As you can see, I'm out here in the trenches, taking trips, trying to make a little bit of extra money like you fine folks do most days. New York City. Can you say New York City has actually passed some legislation actually denoting or allocating a minimum wage for rideshare drivers and food delivery workers? Now, obviously, this is some shit that's worthy of cheering, even if it's only in one market, the nation's largest market, because most markets do not have a minimum wage. But there is pushback. There is threats of litigation. You know who's leading the charge. Uber. Uber has been always against giving the drivers a nickel extra. So Uber is definitely threatening to take them to court. And that's a threat that should be taken seriously, because they took the drivers in Minnesota to court. Even though the drivers in Minnesota had won a hell of a lot of good shit, had been voted in place by the House and the damn Senate, and somehow, some way, Uber got their hands on the fucking governor. Tim Walz is his name. I remember his name because I did so much damn research on what they did to the drivers in Minnesota. And he vetoed the damn bill. The first veto that governor ever had. So out of all of the time he's been a governor, I think for 4 years or more, he had never vetoed a single bill. So you can only imagine what Uber must have paid that guy to get him to do that. Screwed the workers over in Minnesota pretty bad. In New York, they claim they have 60,000 food deliverers, and the average pay for food delivery workers in New York City, Manhattan, $7.09 per hour. The average food delivery worker in one of the locales in America with the highest cost of living was averaging at $7.09 an hour. Now, obviously, there are plenty of drivers that make more than $7.09, but if that's the average, that means there are drivers making less. You can't do shit with $7.09 per hour in a city like New York. Real quick, if you also deliver food in addition to passengers, how much do you average per hour as a food delivery driver? I'm going to assume most people I would talk to average more than that. Why the hell would you continue doing this shit for $7.09 per hour? Do you even speak English? Are you here legally? I can't imagine doing that. I mean, because I understand we like the freedom and the flexibility in the gig economy. But if you're not making any money, you're not free or flexible at all. You got to work 90 hours a week. That doesn't make any sense. But here are the numbers. They're changing that $7.09 average because of the minimum wage increase. They're going to immediately take drivers to $17.96 as of June 12th. I believe that's today. $17.96. So that's $10 an hour average raise. And then by June 2025, 2 years from now, they're going to average it out at $19.19 an hour. So a little bit of good news for food delivery workers in the nation's largest city. However, since the pandemic, let's be clear, most burger flipping jobs pay that $19.19 right now. You can make $19 flipping burgers in a hell of a lot of U.S. markets. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit of politics. Obviously, a lot of shit is worse off down south. You don't hear southern red states fighting for driver pay at all. And in those areas, even W-2 pay is significantly cheaper. It is what it is. So when I say you can make 19 bucks flipping burgers, I'm not talking about in Mississippi, Alabama, or any of the southern hardcore red states. They pay less down there. They don't believe in minimum wage increases and shit like that. And the salaries in their areas make it clear that they don't. Now, Obviously, the food delivery companies is pushing back against this shit. DoorDash is calling this an extreme policy, taking folks up to $17 minimum wage. They call it an extreme policy. And Uber Eats is threatening to go to court over it, which should not surprise you. Most of the good shit that was coming our way that got stopped, was prevented, was done by a derivative of Uber. Lyft, even though they rip us off too, for the most part, they follow in line with Uber. I still believe, and you can let me know in the comments if you disagree. I always invite dissenting opinion. I still believe when Lyft got in the game, they were trying to compete with Uber from a standpoint of we're going to do better by the driver. And they didn't take long for them to realize we can't compete with a company that's paying people shit that keeps showing up to work. So Lyft started slowly but surely following in Uber's footsteps. But I don't believe Lyft wanted to be as scandalous as Uber. You just can't compete when they're not paying people shit and people keep showing up to work for those low-ass wages. So Lyft had to change their tune. Remember, Lyft is the company now that has got rid of, you know, like the Uber pool. Lyft had shared rides also. They got rid of that shit. Thank God they did. Uber is promoting it. Uber's the one promoting letting teenagers hail rides and shit like that. All of the scandalous shit we don't like as drivers, it generally starts with Uber. Up to and including, you know, taking folks to court, taking governments to court to ensure that our pay stays low. Now, Uber's, a spokesperson from Uber, when I read the article that I'm citing off to you, started talking about raising the wage is going to cost jobs, is going to lead people to order less food, and there'll be less trips and things like that. The same shit they say in the W-2 world is going to happen if you raise minimum wage. It's a scare tactic to keep wages low. And a lot of people buy into it, particularly the customers that we deliver to. You start telling them rides are going to cost more, and they vote against Prop 22 or whatever it was out in California. They're part of the reason the governor was able to veto things in Minnesota, because they got the customers behind them by threatening, if you get drivers more money, it's going to cost you more and you're not going to be able to afford a ride. Fact is, both food delivery and ride sharing are great businesses. This shit can work and be a win-win for all. The reason there's so many problems is because Uber and Lyft are taking too much of the damn money. And to feed their greedy ass appetite, everybody else has to suffer. They're constantly coming up with ways to get more money, to get you as a driver or as a food delivery to do your shit for less, and to get the person that is ordering the food or getting in your vehicle to pay more. If you look at what drivers were making when Uber started, I was a driver back in 2014. When it came in my market, we were making $2.20 per mile, and the customers were paying less to get in the damn car. 2023, we're making about a fourth of what we were making, and the passengers are paying significantly more. The only person that's benefited is obviously Uber. They make more money from both the passenger and us as drivers. So that is why a lot of these formulas, such as a minimum wage increase and things like that, do not work, because they have an insatiable appetite for greed. In the food delivery world, for instance, not only do you pay, if you order food, you pay a delivery charge. They're marking up the damn food. If you order a combo meal from McDonald's, you probably pay anywhere between $2 to maybe as much as high as $5 more for that meal, as opposed to going to McDonald's and getting it yourself. You charge the customer a delivery fee. Why the hell do you need to mark up the meal? That's just to pocket money. Now, the drivers are not getting any of that. The driver is getting that little bitty piss-ass mileage rate and praying that they get a decent tip. All of that markup is going to Uber, DoorDash, better yet, or Uber Eats, or one of these other Grubhub companies, or whatever the hell it is. That's the shit that makes it so difficult for anybody else to do well in this industry. But I just wanted to bring this to you because shout out to New York. They had some type of local law in that area that required they look into the wages of gig workers, essentially. Delivery drivers is what they called it. And they came up with all this bullshit. And that's how we're going to get salvation, is that we need an entity, an unbiased entity to look into what the hell goes on, because the customers just want cheap shit. Cheap food deliveries, cheap rides. They don't give a damn if you're making $1 an hour. If your ass show up, if you're willing to deliver my burger, then you a dumbass for doing it. That's how the customers feel. We need an unbiased government entity, an overseer, to look into the wages, and it's pretty clear that we're getting ripped off right and left by the companies. I think Uber is a perfect example of what would happen if there was no minimum wage. $7.09 an hour in the nation's most expensive city, New York. $7.09 an hour. That's what would happen without a minimum wage increase. And if you look at what Uber paid, I've never driven in New York. I haven't done any research or homework on this, but I'm absolutely certain I know what the hell I'm talking about. If you look at what the rideshare drivers and delivery drivers were getting in New York 2, 3, 4 years ago, I can guarantee you it's went down a lot. So without some type of minimum wage increase, you're going to be constantly dealing with these fucking companies coming up with ways to tweak your income and make it less and less. You're essentially being demoted every year. Every year you drive, you're going to make less than you did last year. So shout out to New York for coming up with some shit legislation to turn this around, and at least in their market, their mayor has scored them a victory. And it doesn't have to go to the governor where the governor can veto it or something like that. Hopefully some of these other cities and most large cities do have Democratic mayors. It is what it is. You hear folks talking about crime in Democratic areas. They don't talk about poverty in red states. So hopefully some more Democratic mayors, because, and I'm mentioning politics because it's the Democratic areas that are doing all the fighting for the drivers. California, Seattle, Washington, Michigan, New York, Boston, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan. Anytime you hear somebody fighting for drivers, it's always, so far, when I say always, I mean 100%, always has been a Democratic area. I've been doing this for about 1.5 years, doing research. I have never seen a Republican area fighting for driver's salary. Why the hell is that? Anyhow, I just wanted to bring this to you. Some tidbit of good news, even if you're not in that market. Just shows there's always some hope. But as a food delivery driver in your area, what do you believe drivers in your area, on average, are earning per hour? Let your boy know in the comments. As always, subscribe to the channel. Click the like bell, or whatever the hell it is. And I'll see you in the next video.